our meeting with our land acknowledgement. On March 20th, 2023, we acknowledge that the sacred land on which Smiths Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and the water in order that we might meet here today. We're also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smiths Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, being mindful of generations to come. Okay, are there any amendments to the agenda? Any disclosure of monetary interest? Okay, so I would like to welcome Andrew Cinnamon from Parkview Homes to our meeting this evening. Thanks for being here, Andrew. We have 10 minutes set aside for your presentation, and then what I'll do is open it up to questions afterwards. Does that sound okay with you?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Good. Thanks for being here. Go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you. So good evening, Honorable Mayor and Councillors. I'm here before you this evening to request your support for the full 10-year 100% CIP tax rebate program for the iconic and now refurbished Rideau Hotel. In 2016, when considering purchasing the Rideau Hotel and beginning the long and crazy journey of refurbishing it, I quickly realized that this project did not make much financial sense. It was then that Nikki Dwyer, who was the town planner at the time, informed me about the CIP tax rebate program. She assured me that the building, such as the Rideau Hotel, was exactly what the Rideau, what the CIP rebate program was intended for. I soon learned that this iconic building was a very much loved structure in the community, and that there was an overwhelming desire to save it. I would not have attempted this project without the CIP, as it was the game changer. Without it, I would have simply just walked away. And to give some context to what I'm presenting, in 2018, the Rideau Hotel and the lands associated, so there'd be the strip of land beside it to the, I believe it's the northwest, and to the rear of it, there was two houses, had to all be purchased in order to make the parking lot and the lands to make it viable. So the tax bill for these couple of properties, there was four lots in all, was $9,177. And in 2022, with the commercial designation that was imposed on it, these same properties now the tax bills are $142,684, plus a surprise downtown business association fee of $14,290. If these tax bills are correct, that means a business downtown in Smiths Falls needs to put out $12,655 per month for taxes and business association fees. I hope somehow I've made a mistake on these calculations, because this is outrageous. So moving on, some history and early considerations when looking at this project. I became interested in the Rideau Hotel building when it was up for sale in 2016. It was a well-known landmark and a piece of important history in the community, dating back to 1901 when it was originally built. I purchased the building and property from another developer who had recently gone bankrupt, but after he stripped the artifacts and anything of any value, I was left with quite a mess. I have pictures to prove it, and I believe a number of you have been able to go through the building at that time, and it was rather shocking. However, I still believed it was a project I could handle, and I was keen to contribute towards the rehabilitation of the downtown of Smiths Falls. After looking more closely at the building, it became apparent that the best option would be to demolish it, start over. But while speaking with the head of planning staff, she informed me of the CIP program 4 that was introduced. She was very excited to tell me about the 10-year abatement and the benefits it would provide a developer. The community would effectively partner with the developer to achieve a rehabilitation project that provided significant benefit to the town that otherwise would not be considered. I was also assured in this meeting by the head of planning that the old Rideau Hotel building was exactly the type of project the CIP was designed for. In the CIP report to council dated May 25, 2017, it was written, the use of the CIP provides significant opportunity for the municipality to incentivize development and redevelopment opportunities. The committee feels confident that the rehabilitation of the Rideau Hotel will promote long-term economic viability and greatly improve the quality of the downtown core. And that was written in 2017. It was, I could almost say, some prophetic words. It was well said, and I believe it's turned out to be fairly accurate. It was also said that the restoration of the Rideau Hotel will be a key element in the restoration of the downtown core. And I also believe that's turned out to be true as well. It's sitting very nicely in that beautiful redeveloped downtown. The grant program allows the municipality to focus on net municipal taxation gain, which represents unrealized revenue if the development of the property had not occurred. At the end of the program, the town will realize the full extent of the property taxes. The program was promoted as a 10-year duration, and this was absolutely critical to my decision to proceed with the project. Otherwise, I would have just walked away, as I said earlier. In support of this, I made application in 2017 for the CIP. It was not for a 10-year declining rebate either, I would mention. In reality, the CIP was brilliant as it helped create new revenue source for the town on a historic building that would not otherwise survive. And in short, the developer provides all the money and work, the town collects the additional taxes and refunds it back to the developer for 10 years, and then forever after, it collects the full revenue. And an important clarification is the CIP is not a town funding, as is often referred to, I believe mistakenly. Rather, it's an incentive to motivate development. It's a big difference in that. The CIP qualification conditions. The CIP and the historical committees were very insistent that these conditions were strictly followed in order to ensure the CIP eligibility. And I would add that both committees, this project went on for a few years. Both committees worked diligently to ensure that the details were well done. I could say it was a bit painful because of the costs. These folks, I feel, really represented the town well on these details. And in order to qualify for the CIP, I was told I would have to comply with a number of requirements. These were historical elements of the building that we worked diligently with the CIP and historical committees, and we faithfully executed all of these requirements. And to mention only 3 elements, number 1 was the 3-story portico balcony on Beckwith Street. But this cost me well up to $350,000, possibly a little more, $350,000 to put that together. I'm proud of it. It's beautiful. It was costly. Number 2 was the custom windows and doors on the south and east sides of the building. These cost approximately $250,000 to have them made and installed and so on. So a massive cost over what it would otherwise have costed. And then the restoration of the interior masonry work, the soffit fascia trim, corbels, dental work. And this all required me to build a superstructure on the inside with beams and a huge amount of structure to support the building from the inside to preserve the masonry and all these exterior structures. I would bore you with all the details, but the bottom line is this cost was another $1.4 million unplanned for. These are additional costs in order to comply with the CIP and historical committee requirements, totaling $2 million. So other challenges we faced as the restoration was in progress. The Rideau Hotel project took far more time and money and energy than I ever dreamed possible. Probably the talk of the coffee shops. The list below names a few of these challenges I faced. It took 2.5 years longer than anticipated. It cost $4.5 million more than anticipated. The labor shortage hit during the construction period. The prices began increasing more than we've ever seen before. A worldwide pandemic happened. And after completion, the owner of the Best Western Hotel filed an objection to MPAC to change my property tax assessment from residential to commercial. Who ever heard of such a crazy thing? But it happened. I'm appealing the tax reassessment with MPAC, and I hope to have that reversed back to residential, as was never intended to be commercial. However, this is another challenge to yet to deal with, and I expect that will go well, because it is a residential building. We're phasing out the hotel concept was something that happened after I leased it to this group. We're now in the process of taking back units from them, and hopefully we can turn the page on that soon. In closing, I'm asking for all of your support to get the 10-year tax abatement CIP program with no annual reduction in the rebate, as I was led to believe I would get. This support is really necessary to help make our beautiful Rideau Hotel residences a success story in our community for the next 100 years. And actually, the CIP program is critical to the success of the Rideau Hotel residences. And I would ask if you feel you cannot support this request, that we could postpone this decision to allow further discussions, because it's really important. And just an FYI as well, there's been no funding from the town other than a small grant for some railings that were approved by the historical community on the side of the building. Other than that, this project was solely funded by Parkview Homes without support. And the town continues to collect the original tax of 20 Beckwith and the surrounding buildings, which is $9,117. And there has been no loss in any way to the town on the taxes with this. It's been paid since I bought these properties 100% every year. And the increase in taxes due to the restoration is deferred for 10 years. As of now, with the impact classification of the commercial, the town receives the benefit of 20% of the increased tax bill. So the deferral is only at 80% if I'm successful in this CIP, if you approve that tonight. So that's another additional $28,000 that's currently, was paid last year in 2022 on top of the $9,000. So that's the $9,100 plus $28,000 taxes was paid. It will be paid even if the rebate was in place. The long-term benefit of the iconic downtown landmark is restored in the very strict guidelines of the historical committee and CIP. The goal of preserving and recreating the look and feel of the 1901 building has been accomplished. Plus, an additional bonus, we have Setu Bakery now serving our community in the downtown. Phil, she's very pleased with having her in there and her team. I feel they represent the Rideau Hotel very well. And at the end of the program, the town receives the full benefit of the property taxes for decades to come. This program, yeah.
If you could wrap up, Mr. Cinnamon, we're about 15 minutes.
Oh, geez. That's the longest speech I've ever done.
Time really flies. Is there anything further you wanted to ask before I open things up for questions?
No, that's great. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. The hotel certainly is a gem in our downtown, and I'm sure my colleagues agree on that. I'll just open it up now while you're here to see if my colleagues have any questions. Mayor Panko.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Firstly, I mean, I've told you personally before, but I really appreciate what you and your team have done to not just preserve one of our most treasured assets, but to enhance it and bring it back to its original glory. So it is an icon in the downtown and one of the most prominent heritage buildings we have. So we're very grateful that you have done this for the community. And I've actually stayed in there a couple of times as a novelty, and it is the rooms are beautiful. It's a great location. It's a real asset to our community. As you know, committee of the whole made a decision last week. I was away last week, so I wasn't able to participate in that discussion. But my question back to you relates primarily to two things, Andrew. One, you talked about taking back units. So, and I don't know the guidelines and how MPAC will treat this, and how it treats other type of similar arrangements where what constitutes a hotel or short-term rental, what constitutes residential use. And you've obviously, as you mentioned, have appealed that tax classification. So first question is, the units that are in there now, are they being rented on a day-to-day basis, or are they a long-term rental? And do you see that evolving sometime this year? And then the second question, if you can simply confirm that you have already made the appeal to MPAC on the tax class, and if you do any idea how long that it will take for that process to roll out and reach a conclusion.
Sure. Well, thank you, Mayor Panko. So we have taken, so I leased them all as residential units to a company who told me they were doing medium and long-term rentals. What I've now since learned, they are not doing, I don't know if there's any longer term initially. They were doing more short-term hotel style. However, I gave them all residential leases. I've since taken half of the units, 12 units back from them, and they are all leased out on long-term. So long-term is longer than a month. That's how MPAC considers short-term, long-term. So short-term is less than a month, long-term is longer than a month. So now we have 12 of the units taken back from the other company. I don't want to say names because it's not fair to them, but taken 12 of them back, and they're all in long-term rentals. So I'm hoping to work with them to get the rest of them back and put them all into long-term rentals over the next couple months. Yeah, so that is well in progress. As far as MPAC, yeah, we have contacted them. We had to get their reports and documentation, and we're working with our consultant right now, filling all the documents out to send that. I can't speak to the timing of this yet. I hate to guess, especially when it's a government agency. So yeah, I hope it's quick, but who knows?
Okay, so
I think the evidence is compelling, though. The evidence of our results, what we're doing, is compelling. Yeah, so
I guess the thought I have is that the tax class may have a material effect, would have a material effect, obviously, on the amount of taxes collected, and also the amount that's rebated. So I'm not sure if staff have guidance as to would that be, if council proceeded with a decision tonight or before this tax class issue is confirmed, would an agreement with Mr. Cinnamon and Parkview Homes speak to a need to potentially pivot along the way? Or is it something, if there's no sense of urgency to make a decision on this now, should we be deferring a decision on this until that issue has been resolved?
Thank you. Looks like Senior Planner Grenke can help us with that one.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. At this point, yes, there is a material difference. The former community improvement plan spelled out an 80% annual tax increment over the agreed upon base funding if this was, or base assessment if this was classed as a commercial use, and that rate increases to 100% abatement if it's a residential use. Staff are in the process of developing a draft contribution agreement, and it is the wording, of course, has not been finalized at this point, but is our expectation that we would include language in that agreement that either ties this into a percentage decrease if that's the direction of council, or alternatively, we can proceed as we are right now with the provision in there that in the event that the property is reassessed to residential, which obviously changes the level of tax increment that's available, then that be represented back to council or otherwise reassessed at that time, thus opening that up in the event that a change is underway. As indicated by Mr. Cinnamon, we don't know when the results of that appeal may be finalized. So potentially including some language in the agreement to accommodate that could be a way to to address a shift in the event that the property is reassessed.
Thank you. Mayor Panko, does that answer your question?
Essentially, yes, thank you. And but I guess are we overcomplicating it while this whole appeal process is in place? And I beg the question: are we better off to simply defer until that's been resolved? But I'll turn to the subcommittee for the guidance.
So Councillor McKenna and then Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question: if we're going to open this discussion or reopen it, should we perhaps put it as a priority issue for this evening, or are we just going to seek clarification? And I turn to you and my colleagues to see we could invest some time when that comes up later. Having said that, I did have a question just for clarity from Mr. Granke.
Thank you.
When he suggests that it's 100% if it's commercial and 80% if it's residential, that would be up to. That's not. I just want to clarify that up to 100% or up to 80%.
Senior Planner Granke.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. That is correct. Up to 100% abatement for residential or 80% for commercial.
Okay.
Thank you. And Councillor McKenna, I will come to that. We'll have to make that decision about when to discuss this further or if we want to. But right now, it's an opportunity to ask questions of Mr. Cinnamon and Councillor Brennan. I think you have your hand up.
Yeah, I did. Thanks, Andrew, for coming and speaking to this. And from your presentation, you state that you're paying after the fantastic renovations you've done, 142,000 or thereabouts in property taxes. You have a appeal in with impact for to become classed as residential, and I wonder what. Forgive me for not knowing, but what impact would that have on the 142,000 and change that you're paying now?
Sorry, the internet connection cut for a second. I missed your question, Councillor.
No worries, no worries. If short, to be shorter, if you're reclassified as residential, how would that impact the property taxes you pay to the town now, which you stated was 142,000?
My understanding is it's half, approximately half.
Half of that.
I believe it's 3.3% for the commercial and 1.6 for residential.
So I guess we'd talk about half of 142, so yeah. 70,000, right?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
I mean, I own both type of properties, so that's that's probably pretty accurate because I have a lot of tax bills.
Yeah, so that's significant, no doubt. And I have no qualms in agreeing with the mayor, because that is a significant decision that we're waiting for, and so I have no qualms about deferring at this point. I don't think we need to talk about it tonight. I think that we need to glean more information And I thank you for your commitment to the town. And but if we have a decision pending that it is going to potentially cut your property taxes in half, then I think a decision tonight on an agreement for with you for tax abatement is premature.
Thank you, Councillor Brennan. Councillor McKenna, do you have your hand up again, or is that, okay, go ahead.
If I may, I just want to flag this discussion. It may be a red herring classification of the property. The principle remains the same. Are we maxing out the rebate? Is it going to be reduced over years, or is it going to stay at the max amount? Whether it's commercial or residential is neither here nor there. That means something to Mr. Cinnamon, but it means it's a bit of a red herring to be talking about that. I think the program is designed for either option, and we shouldn't make our decision on how it's tax class. We should make it on the merits of the investment by Parkview and the value added that it's provided to our downtown core. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any other hands up. It sounds to me that we have some interest in removing the decision from tonight's council meeting and deferring the discussion to a future priority issue. Would council agree with that? Thank you.
Could I say something?
Yes, just quickly, and we'll wrap this up, Mr. Cinnamon.
Okay, yeah. From what we heard from just a minute ago, yeah, it would be helpful to know where we're going with this, though. I mean, that was because I believe the program is designed either way for commercial or residential. So I'd really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks. So we'll defer to the clerk in a future agenda. And CAO Morris, would we know which agenda we'll put that on, just to not leave Mr. Cinnamon hanging, or will we get back to him shortly?
I think at this point, Madam Chair, we'll need to take stock of what we could bring back. So it seems like the linchpin is the classification. So that's not going to be known for some time. So my only advice is, from the town's perspective, there isn't an urgency to this matter. I won't speak on behalf of Mr. Cinnamon, but from the town's perspective, based on the recommendation that you considered last week, the taxes are owing in any event, the full amount, and then it's the rebate that would occur next in 2024 that might change. So from the town's point of view, there's ample time to make this decision before the rebate, whatever it might be, occurs in the first quarter of 2024. So there will be budgetary impacts for 2024, but they can be dealt with at budget time later this year. So I'm just suggesting there isn't a sense of urgency on the town's part. If council would rather dispense of this right away, we can certainly bring it back soon. But I'm not sure what additional information we can provide until we know what the tax classification is going to be.
Would the rebate not be in effect, though, for the year 2022? Like, if it was approved now, we'd file for the 2022 taxes?
Through the chair, my understanding is that the abatement program begins the tax year in which the agreement is signed, which in this case is 2023.
Oh, okay.
And we have a question from Councillor McGuire. Thanks, CAO Morris.
Thanks, Madam Chair. CAO Morris, I'm wondering if the assessment is shifted from commercial to residential, will the number be the same? So we could run a projection based on the assessed value, if it's a commercial property or residential property, or if that assessed value will change with the commercial residential split.
My understanding through the chair is that the assessed value could also change because of the use. So I wouldn't want to predict at this point what the assessed value or the tax rate would be until MPAC renders a decision.
Thanks. And just to follow up, that could be, are we talking upwards of a year or?
Much like Mr. Cinnamon, it would be speculation to predict how long that'll take.
Okay, with that being considered, I'd be okay with moving forward with things as they are. And then if we have to relook at it in the future because of a change in the assessment, we can relook at it. But it's the way I'm hearing it, this could push it back to 24, 25, potentially, depending how long it takes MPAC to get back to us.
So, Mayor Panko?
So understanding, Mr. Cinnamon would like to have an agreement in 2023 so that it impacts the 2023 taxes and would lead to a rebate in early 2024 for the 2023. And we're March now. I would suggest when we give MPAC some time to deal with this this appeal by Mr. Cinnamon and his company, and revisit it later in the year. We know that with absolute certainty, we could bring it back later in the year, even if we have not heard back from MPAC. If there's no decision rendered, we can still deal with 2023 at that time. But it does give us 6-8 months to hear back from MPAC so that we know exactly what we're dealing with.
Thank you. Councillor Brennan, did you?
Yeah, took the words out of my mouth. I mean, I think for committee, we should agree tonight to take this bylaw off the agenda for subsequent council meeting, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, and would the rest of council agree with that? Removing it from tonight's agenda?
Yeah, remove it.
All right, so we do have direction there. Again, thank you, Mr. Cinnamon, for your time tonight. We appreciate your input, and we look forward to working with you as we gather more information.
Well, thank you very much. Would I be notified when that comes up again?
We can ask that staff do that for sure.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a really good night.
Thank you, you too.
Okay, adoption of minutes. We don't have any this evening. We do have a CAO report. CAO Morris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have two staffing related announcements. First one is that Ms. Costello is back in the limelight. She'll be assisting at these meetings and fulfilling the role of town clerk. So you'll get to see her more often. In fact, every Monday. So we welcome Carrie back to this role. The second announcement is we're truly excited to announce Stephanie Clark has joined the leadership team earlier today, in fact, and she's our new Director of Community Services. So Stephanie is with us this evening and would like to say a few words.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Clark. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. I just wanted to say hello and introduce myself. As CAO Moore said, my name is Stephanie Clark, and I'm coming from Iqaluit Nunavut, where I've spent the last, give or take, 8 years. So I'm very excited to be in the south. I'm very excited to be near trees and water and not a lot of snow. Everyone has just been really wonderful and welcoming, and I'm looking forward to tackling some of the upcoming challenges and making this the best possible place for us all to live. So I appreciate the very warm welcome from my colleagues, and I'm looking forward to working with you all.
Wonderful.
Welcome.
We're looking forward to that as well. Okay, thank you. Great to see all of these new additions to the team, CAO Morris. We have no correspondence items or in-camera issues, so we're going on to priority issues. We have one item this evening, Next Generation 911 funding, and it is with Chief Cheeseborough.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wish to present report 2023-42 tonight. There will be a slight adjustment to both the recommendation and to the option that I'm recommending for you tonight. There's been some information that has been brought forward earlier today. That will adjust this report, and I can certainly get into that as we go through the report. My recommendation tonight is to seek the Council Corporation and Town of Smith Falls approves the execution of a transfer payment agreement to accept the Next Generation 911 transitional grant funding from the province of Ontario, and to seek approval and direction to sole source and purchase the necessary equipment for the Town of Smith Falls. The purpose of the agreement to secure the grant funding from the province in advance of our transition to the Next Generation 911 service and to make several purchase decisions. A few years ago, the province had decided through the Canadian Radio Telecommunications Commission to transfer into the Next Generation 911 service. The Next Generation 911 service is going to bring enhanced ability for all Canadians to access the 911 service. They'll be able to text, they'll be able to send pictures, they'll be able to do voice communication through a phone. It's just a progressionary with communications. We started with 911, then enhanced 911, and now we're into the Next Generation 911. Entering into the Next Generation 911 certainly is not a small task, is going to require coordination and collaboration between numerous stakeholders, including the commission, telecommunication, service providers, 911 services, network providers, CRTC, interconnection and steering committee, as well as the federal, provincial, and territorial and municipal governments. In support of the new regulation for dispatching agencies, the Government of Ontario announced a grant funding program on November the 28th, 2022, in the amount of $208 million to be distributed in 3 rounds over a 3-year period. All agencies were invited to complete a funding application detailing specific technical and hardware support required for the transition. Both fire and police services submitted the applications for the respective dispatch services, as we were instructed to do it individually. We were successful, both police and fire, in receiving $560,000 in grant funding for our application. Although our applications did not request $560,000, the methodology that the government put out translated into $560,000 for each of the agencies. To secure the funding and allow time for the transition payment approvals, the ministry requests a signed copy of the letter of intent no later than March 24th, 2023. It is also important to note the amount of the grant funding allocated to Smith Falls must be spent by March 31st, 2023, with final reporting of expenditures by July the 31st, 2023. Extremely short, tight timelines. Due to the significant short timelines of the funding program, we are requesting the sole sourcing to purchase necessary equipment for the town side of the operation. As well, included in that, we're seeking your approval and direction to enter in and execute the transfer of payment for 911. My option 1 tonight is requesting the Corporation Town of Smith Falls Council approve the recommendation to execute the transfer payment to accept the grant funding and the sole sourcing and the necessary equipment for Smith Falls Fire Dispatch. The portion that has been removed is the execution of an agreement with Owen Sound. We're currently in negotiations with Owen Sound, and it would be premature at this time to enter in an agreement until the final negotiations and the total dollar amount has been identified for both police and fire. We met with Owen Sound today, and there has been some changes, and we're requesting that be deferred to a future council meeting or committee of the whole meeting for a decision once we have the final numbers in. The budget and the financial implications of this report, the Ministry of Solicitor General contact is confirmed both in writing and verbally. The round 1 grant funding must be expended by the provincial fiscal year, which ends March 31st. Monies not committed by this date must be returned. And the only practical way for us to meet this is to use some of the capital purchases in the sole sourcing of the equipment and to execute the agreement. The associated capital costs are estimated to be approximately 145,000 of the 560,000 that we've been allocated. The town's procurement policy does enable sourcing procurement in these circumstances. Where there are limited suppliers, the policy is silent as it relates to the prepaid services. Again, the grant funding must be spent by the end of the month, and all supporting documents must be submitted to the government by July the 31st. It's very tight. We've been in a struggle since the announcement has come forth with regards to the portion of money that we and the police will receive. And we've been working tirelessly since March the 3rd to ensure both that we're meeting our requirements and under the regulations provincially, as well as municipally and through the procurement policy. And I think we have a plan going forward. We just have to finalize some of the final touches. That is my report tonight, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions? Councillor McKenna?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Chief and your team. I have worked and received many grants from federal and provincial governments, and I'm familiar with these kind of, I won't say insane deadlines, but they're quite difficult. And I just congratulate you for not if you pull it off, but when you pull it off. So I just want to thank you, and I understand that pressure and appreciate the effort that you and your group are putting into to make sure that you secure this funding and that we have a successful program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Mayor Panko?
Thank you, Chief. Just for some clarity, I guess tonight you're looking for support for the town to enter into the transfer payment agreement. We have to do that before the 24th. And that enables us to capitalize on this grant funding opportunity. Yet, I guess we understand the capital cost, which would be about 145,000, has to be sole sourced, which to my understanding, it's there's really only one provider out there for this equipment anyway. So that seems like a natural decision we'll have to make. So the remaining piece, I guess, is the agreement with Owen Sound, and your suggestion is we have $150,000 budget item, so estimated cost within the report, but that may change. So you're asking us to defer a decision on that, I assume, until next week. Is that correct?
Through the chair, yes, your worship, you're correct. The report is requesting the execution of the transfer payment number 1. What that does is it advises the province of Ontario of our intent to accept and use that money as detailed in the application. It also, I'm also recommending, due to the short timeline and the limited number of suppliers, the sole sourcing of the equipment, which we were hoping to do in conjunction with other dispatching centers. So there would be economy of scale in the purchasing of that equipment. But again, limited number of suppliers and a very short window of opportunity to secure that, to receive the goods, have them in place, have it paid, and have the documentation submitted back to the province so that we're in compliance. The third question, your worship, through regarding the decision with Owen Sound, they have been reevaluating and working through what their actual costs would be based on the number of agencies that they would be contracting with. And at this point in time, they haven't finalized that number. Therefore, they're unable to give us an exact number, dollar figure, I should say, on what it's going to cost police and fire for a 5-year service. And I would be remiss to say that entering into an agreement with an unknown dollar amount based on the restricted amount of funding that we have would not be a good practice. I would further like to see waiting a week and or two. And in the event that we cannot negotiate an agreement, there is round 2 and round 3 of the funding. We are not listed to enter into Next Generation 911 till mid third quarter of 2024. April 1st of this year opens up the second round. So if we cannot secure an agreement with Owen Sound, unfortunately, that portion of the grant funding that we've listed, the government would keep. Then it would be the responsibility of us to resubmit a second round funding application, requesting funding for a host to do the 911, and or a third round application to host, to secure a host for the funding of the 911.
So it's, I mean, the province has imposed pretty unreasonable conditions on every municipality that's been successful with this grant funding. An awkward situation within the municipal act, but I guess you've been able to confirm that these are appropriate actions that we can take, and the fact they're imposed by the province suggests that they should be loosening up whatever process we need to follow in order to get to where we need to be. But the only other, I guess, I appreciate that, and I hope we have an answer by next week. My preference would be we try to leverage what's been the bird in the hand rather than the bird in the bush down the road potentially. I mean, it may consider the difficulty here. There may not be a lot of municipalities that get everything done in time, which may leave a lot of applications for round 2 and 3, and we take a risk if we defer to that. Final question, I guess, though, even if we were able to get, let's say, roughly 150,000 for the equipment, a 5-year agreement, if it was 30,000 years, another 150, that's $300,000. That's far short of the 560 that's been promised, I guess. Is there a reason why we agreed on a 5-year or working towards a 5-year agreement, or could we secure a 10-year agreement and utilize this funding to pay for the next 10 years?
Through the chair, that's an excellent question. The 5-year agreement, I think, was prompted through discussions on the initial stages of Next Generation 911 talks with surrounding jurisdictions, which was Brockville, Kingston, Gananoque, Smiths Falls, Hawkesbury, etc. Seeing the number of individuals or agencies that were going to be involved, they looked at securing that 5-year deal, which certainly would provide a level of comfort and security for the agencies doing the dispatching. At this point, into the 560,000 we've been allocated, because we haven't been able to have an agreement in front of us showing that it's going to be 150,000 for 5 years, which during my meeting today, as we're awaiting that document, I also put the offer out, if there was remaining money in that grant application or funding, would there be a consideration for a 6-year, 7-year, 8-year, whatever it may be? And the answer from their IT department through the chief of police was they are unable to determine cost beyond 5 years with the unknown operational costs and the unknown number of clients that they're going to have use them as a host for the Next Generation 911. So they're in a very precarious situation as we are in acquiring equipment to run their organization as well as the staff to support it, and not knowing 100% how many clients they're going to have. They also purchased equipment prior to April 2022, $750,000 worth of equipment, trying to get a lead on the Next Generation 911. They were informed they're not eligible for any money for that purchase. It was done before the announcement of the funding application. So they've already expended $750,000. So they're very nervous about taking it any longer than the 5 years.
Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, thank you.
So what I'm hearing from you, Chief, is that you are looking for council to endorse option 1 with the removal of the Owen Sound piece.
Correct, the deferral of the Owen Sound to a future meeting.
All right, and do we have agreement from council tonight? I'm counting thumbs. Looks good. Okay, thanks, Chief. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to our adjournment. We have a recommended motion for that the committee adjourn its proceedings at 5:50 p.m. and stand so adjourned until the next duly called committee meeting. Do I have someone to make that motion, please? Councillor Brennan, seconded by Councillor Robinson. All in favor? And carried. Thank you.
So probably just a couple of minutes here to get things organized. I guess Carrie, you have a.
Yep, I
Motion.
just sent everybody out the resolutions for the 2 additional bylaws this evening. I'll just pull them up here. So the first one so obviously Mayor Panko, we're removing as per council's direction 7.2 off the bylaws. So I'll renumber everything as appropriate. So we're adding a new 7.2, which is the transfer payment agreement that Chief Cheeseborough just mentioned. And I need a mover and seconder for that one. Councillor Robinson and Councillor Quinn. And then we've also added 7.3, which is also with the NG 911 regarding the sole sourcing, the procurement item. If I could get a mover and a seconder for that one.
Who do we have there?
Councillor McGuire and Councillor McKenna.
Okay.
So those are the 2 additions, Mayor Panko, and then the 1 removal of the 7.2.
Yeah, I see the wording there in front of me, so
So
perfect.
I've renumbered, so
Good.
yep, should be good to
Okay.
go whenever
So
council's ready.
Your first day back on the job and you've got it all.
I'm in it.
Organized.
Just jumping right back in the saddle.
Oh, awesome. Like you never left.
Nope.
Okay. Super. Okay. Are everyone ready to roll? Okay. Okay. Are we live or do we need to move this live?
We are still live, so if you just, whenever you're ready to go.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Welcome back to this regular meeting of Smith Falls Town Council for Monday, March 20th. On Monday, March 20th, we acknowledge that the sacred land in which Smith Falls is now located has been a site of human activity for over 10,000 years and is rich in Indigenous history. This land is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We are grateful to the Algonquin ancestors who cared for the land and water in order that we might be here today. We're also grateful to the Algonquin people for their contribution in the making of the Rideau Canal, which runs through Smith Falls. We are mindful of broken covenants and the need to reconcile with all our relations. Together, may we care for this land and each other, drawing on the strength of our mutual history of nation building through peace and friendship, and be mindful of generations to come. I will call the meeting to order. For those who are watching at home, we made some amendments to our agenda. We're going to remove item 7.2, add a new item 7.2, which is a transfer payment agreement with the province of Ontario. Councillor Robinson has that. We're also adding 7.3, which is a related bylaw, sole sourcing procurement, and that is with Councillor McGuire. I've got a couple of announcements myself. First, a proclamation, International Day of Elimination of Racial Discrimination. Whereas March 21st is the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, which is a day dedicated to acknowledging, challenging, and eliminating racism. And whereas the rights to equality and non-discrimination are cornerstones of human rights law, as in Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which states that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. And whereas racial discrimination is the universal issue that divides communities and threatens the political, social, economic, and cultural foundations on which communities are built. And whereas every day, each and every one of us stand up against racial prejudice, hatred, and intolerant attitudes. And therefore, I, Sean Panko, Mayor of the town of Smith Falls, do hereby proclaim a March 21st, 2023 International Day for the elimination of racial discrimination in the town of Smith Falls. Also, I want to speak a little bit about our Smith Falls Junior A Bears. First, I want to congratulate Captain Sean James, who has been voted the top graduating player in the CCHL. Sean led the league this season with 41 goals and 84 points in just 54 games. In 116 career games with the Bears, he has had 75 goals and 179 points. A real incredible career with the Bears. Sean has earned NCAA Division I scholarship, thanks to his dedication to academics and success in the CCHL. And secondly, I want to congratulate GM and coach Pat Malloy, who was named the CCHL General Manager of the Year. Pat's in his 4th season with the Bears, helped guide the team to a Robinson Division best 35-15-1-2 record. And of course, as many of us are aware, the Bears have secured a top 3 seed for the playoffs and will face off against rival Carleton Place Canadians in the first round of the 2022-2023 Bogard Cup playoffs. And game 1 is this Friday at the Smith Falls Memorial Community Center. So congratulations to the Bears, and obviously best wishes as you enter the playoffs. That's it for my announcements. Last for disclosure of monetary interest. I see none. We have no delegations. We do have adoption of minutes, which is with Councillor Maguire, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry, the mute there was getting me. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McKenna that the minutes of the March 6, 2023 council meeting be approved as circulated.
Thank you. It is moved by Councillor Maguire and seconded by Councillor McKenna that the minutes of the March 6, 2023 council meeting be approved as circulated. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Reports. Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to report on the Community Services Committee of March 8th at Lanark County, which the mayor and I attended. Just some highlights. Lanark Lodge had their critical generator assessed, and it actually failed to meet the TSSA standards. It required an update in its fuel supply and the exhaust system as well. So county at the committee, we approved up to $100,000 be taken from reserves to bring that critical piece of infrastructure up to standard. We also heard a lot on housing. The Canada-Ontario Housing Initiative, which is to the tune of about $483,000. And that money will be used for repairing and renewal of existing housing stock, public housing stock in Lanark County. So Lanark County would benefit, and the other not-for-profit housing providers, and they have a formula for sharing that money across the providers to bring our existing housing stock, keep it in good repair and up to standards. The second funding announcement was on the Ontario Priorities Housing Initiative, and $363,000 was allocated toward rental assistance. Ontario renovates, and that would be for qualified households. If you'd like to find out whether you qualify or not, please phone Lanark County Housing or Social Services. Excuse me. The third one, which is another significant investment from our federal, provincial, and of course, local partnerships, is $1.5 million for the Homelessness Prevention Initiative. And that money would go towards emergency shelters, supportive housing, community outreach and support, short and long-term supports, rent, utilities, and emergency repairs. A critical piece. The best way to contribute to the plague of homelessness is to keep people housed where they are. And so this money would go a long way in keeping people in their own homes. Interestingly, if we talk about childcare for a moment, Lanark County has 13 childcare providers operating at 27 different sites, and an astounding $18 million from the federal, provincial, and local coffers goes into supporting that those 27 sites. That amount took a huge jump when the federal and provincial governments signed an agreement for what's commonly referred to now as $10 a day daycare. So our children and our parents across Lanark County are benefiting from that wonderful initiative. Finally, we spent quite a considerable amount of time. I won't say it was controversial, but it was certainly, there was a wide range of opinions on an awarding of a contract of $1.3 million to upgrade the heating systems in our public housing sites on Cars Avenue in Smith Falls and Harriet's this year and Harriet Street in Perth next year. Substantial investment over the long term in heating sources. Staff's recommendation was that we go with natural gas to, and they had a contract ready to go to tender. A lot of discussion from my colleagues around the table, whether this was wise, given the climate crisis we're in, and whether we should look at alternative, perhaps air source heat pumps or other alternatives. The committee did decide to proceed with the awarding of the contract in spite of that recent information. However, in the interim, a number of county councillors are looking at different set of data. That is expected to come to county council, that decision, on Wednesday evening. And as you know, the mayor and I do not have a vote at the county. However, we'll see what happens at the county. There's a lot of work going on in the background. One of the, there's a lot of merit, I understand, in staff wanting to move ahead with the natural gas. However, the advantage, if we could take a step back and look at air source heat pumps, would be lower capital investment initially, and over the long term, lower operational costs, let alone the benefits to the environment. So stay tuned on that one. There's a lot at play. These are important decisions that have 10, 15, 20-year ramifications. So that is the end of my report from Community Services, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional reports? I see none. I'll one report myself on top of what Councillor McCann's already indicated. On Wednesday, March 8th, it was my pleasure to serve as the Master of Ceremonies for the Connect Well Community Fair at our Memorial Community Center. Approximately 24 local agencies participated to connect with the public, share details of their programs and services, and understanding the pandemic had suppressed a lot of the work of a lot of organizations and made it much more difficult for them to communicate with their potential clientele and the members of the community they could serve. So it looked like a very successful day. They were able to connect with a large number of people from the public, and my hope is that they repeat this in the future. And I want to express my deepest gratitude to all the participants, and especially those that Connect Well, who made a lot of effort in bringing together the organizations and organizing the event. So just a very well done day. So moving on to our further agenda, bylaws. Our first bylaws with Councillor Miller, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Quinn that a bylaw to authorize an amendment to parking bylaw 7252-97 respecting the authority to tow vehicles be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. It was moved by Councillor Miller and seconded by Councillor Quinn that a bylaw to authorize an amendment to parking bylaw 7252-97 respecting the authority to tow vehicles be received for the first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Discussion, Councillor Miller?
Thank you. So this grants authority to our bylaw officers that should a vehicle need to be towed, they would have the authority to do that if the police were not available to take care of that situation.
Thank you. Any further discussion? May I have the third reading, please?
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Quinn that a bylaw to authorize an amendment to parking bylaw 7252-97 respecting the authority to tow vehicles be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10435-2023.
Thank you. It is moved by Councillor Quinn and seconded by Councillor Miller, seconded by Councillor Quinn. The bylaw to authorize an amendment to parking bylaw 7252-97 respecting the authority to tow vehicles be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10435-2023. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Councillor Robinson has the new 7.2, right?
Yes.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Quinn, that a bylaw to authorize execution of a transfer payment agreement to accept new generation or next generation 911 transitional grant funding from the province of Ontario be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. It is moved by Councillor Robinson and seconded by Councillor Quinn that a bylaw to authorize execution of a transfer payment agreement to accept NG 911 transitional grant funding from the province of Ontario be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Discussion, Councillor Robinson?
Yeah, this is quite time sensitive. The government has given funding to the fire and police departments to execute this purchase of equipment, and they have to get a signed letter on the 24th saying that it's in place, and then they've got till the 31st to spend the money for the equipment. So it's a very short time frame, and that's why it's urgent.
Thank you. Any further discussion? May I have a third reading, please?
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Quinn that a bylaw to authorize execution of a transfer payment agreement to accept NG 911 transitional grant funding from the province of Ontario be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10436-2023.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Robinson and seconded by Councillor Quinn that a bylaw to authorize execution of a transfer payment agreement to accept NG 911 transitional grant funding from the province of Ontario be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10436-2023. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Councillor McGuire, you have the new item 7.3, I believe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McKenna that a bylaw to authorize exception from the procurement bylaw to permit the fire chief to sole source the purchase of necessary equipment for the next generation 911 be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time.
Thank you. It is moved by Councillor McGuire and seconded by Councillor McKenna that a bylaw to authorize exception from the procurement bylaw to permit the fire chief to sole source the purchase of necessary equipment for next generation 911 be received and read a first time and taken as read a second time. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Discussion, Councillor McGuire?
Yeah, so this is connected to 7.2, and with the tight deadlines and the highly specialized nature of the equipment, there's only one supplier that's been identified that can fulfill it in the time frame. So, so that's where we're at today.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Yes, Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just in spite of the tight timelines, I do want to express our gratitude to the province of Ontario for this funding. It's critical at this point as we move on our journey to next generation 911.
Thank you. Anything further? May I have a third reading, please?
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McKenna that a bylaw to authorize exception from the procurement bylaw to permit the fire chief to sole source the purchase of necessary equipment for next generation 911 be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10437-2023.
Thank you. It is moved by Councillor McGuire and seconded by Councillor McKenna that a bylaw to authorize exception from the procurement bylaw to permit the fire chief to sole source the purchase of necessary equipment for next generation 911 be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 10437-2023. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. That's it for our bylaws. And Councillor Quinn, you have our first motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. 2022 Statement of Remuneration and Expenses, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Miller, that the itemized statement of remuneration and expenses attached as Scheduled A, paid to each councillor and committee members for the year 2023 pursuant to the Municipal Act, Section 284, as amended, be received and filed.
Thank you. Discussion, Councillor Quinn?
This is basically a housekeeping issue that we do so that everything that is spent, there is a record of it. So there's never any concerns or questions about where this money has been gone. It's all recorded.
Thank you. Director, Clerk Costello.
Just wanted to mention it is indeed the year 2022 instead of 2023.
Thank you. Anything further? Okay. Moved by Councillor Quinn and seconded by Councillor Miller, that the itemized statement of remuneration and expenses attached as Schedule A, paid to each councillor and committee member for the year 2022, pursuant to the Municipal Act, Section 284, as amended, be received and filed. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And Councillor Robinson, you're up next.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Quinn that Council of the Corporation of the Town of Smith Falls receive report number 2023-041, the 2022 Smith Falls Drinking Water System Summary Report for information.
Thank you. And discussion, please.
This is the 175-page report that was submitted by Jason Barlow. It was sort of a report card on how the town was doing, and they did quite well.
Thank you. Anything further? Okay. Moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor Quinn. The Council of the Corporation of Town of Smith Falls received report 2023-041, the 2022 Smith Falls Drinking Water System Summary Report for information. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. That's the end of our formal business. Any inquiries or announcements? Councillor Brennan, yes, you're all ready.
Yeah, thank you. I had mentioned a week or two ago that the Heritage House Museum had posted placards in various businesses downtown recognizing remarkable women in Smith Falls. And I wanted to report tonight that they're looking for more names. They're requesting nominations to nominate women for the exhibit that I would assume would be in this summer. Nominees should be women from Smith Falls, past or present, who have a positive influence locally, nationally, and internationally throughout any time period. The impact can be cultural, athletic, political, academic, environmental, or any other thing. Once the nominees are collected, they will have a look at them, and we'll have another round of this. But I have many, many rounds. I know that. So the nominations are open till the end of the month, March 31st. So you could go on the Heritage House Facebook page and complete a survey, or just contact them at 613-283-6311. We look forward to the next round of our remarkable women.
Wonderful. Thank you. Councillor Quinn.
Thank you. I just wanted to report on March the 8th, myself and Councillor Robinson, we attended a workshop on economic development in Kemptville. Was very enlightening. I have brought back a couple of extra copies of this. It was like working with our adjoining municipalities, doing things such as getting our trails connected and mapped out so people know things that we can do to improve the economy of our municipalities. But one of the thoughts that I had was, by bringing back some of this information, because it was really quite informative, that maybe we could do something like that on a small scale here in Smith Falls with our businesses and major stakeholders, and sort of get these people involved and beginning to understand that, we need to all work together to draw people into our community to improve our economic growth that is possible here. Just an idea. And like I said, I did bring back some extra copies, and I'll pass one on to you, Your Worship, and I'll get one for Julia Crowder also. Thank you.
Super, thank you. Anything further? Councillor Brennan, I believe you have the adjournment.
I do. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Quinn, that this council adjourn its proceedings at 6:15 p.m. and stand so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council.
Thank you. It's moved by Councillor Brennan and seconded by Councillor Quinn. This council adjourns proceedings at 6:15 p.m. and stands so adjourned until the next duly called meeting of council. All in favor? We are adjourned.